Well, I'm not a fan of Frank Wilson or Afro-Pessimism. I think he's complete trash, and I'll tell you why. At the same time, Frank Wilson is making these arguments. 75% of black wealth is still owned by 10% of the black population, and much of the punishment and brutality that black people are experiencing in black cities is done under the management of black elites, black police chiefs, black cops, black mayors. And it's at the same time all this brutality is happening.
But who are the employees of?
The employees of black political establishment, the black political class in those cities, and the notion
they work for the man too, man. They work in City Hall.
Yeah, exactly, and they're protecting their class.
I mean, Georgia is a perfect example of like a state that's dominated by black people.
They're managers of some. They're managers.
Yeah, and they're protecting their class interests. Well, so do we assume that they have some kind of I'm supposed to believe that they have some innate kind of super magical racial kinship that makes them say, because I have melanin, normally if it wasn't for my paycheck, making sure that I'm going to keep the system going.
Look, most black people in this country who work are employees of the government. Most of them are not managers; they are employees.
That's true. And
I'm just saying that the people that you're looking at as being the managers of this have masters. They are not the.
I would push back really hard on that. Let me say this before Pascal gets all upset. Okay. I would push back really hard on that, because basically you're saying that these Negroes can't do anything on their own without a white person pulling their strings. And I don't believe that. No. And I say, look at Georgia as a perfect example.
Who does Barack Obama work for?
I'm saying the policies they are enacting are designed above their pay grade. They are simply,
I disagree wholeheartedly. And I'll point out Maynard Jackson is a perfect example in 70s Georgia. There's a long list of black Tom Bradley in Los Angeles.
And they are like essentially like servants of the ruling class. But they are not the designers of this. It's like the 16. Again, I go back to 1619 Project. It's like what that section really brought out was that racism is it operates at an algorithmic level.
Yeah, but it doesn't affect black people of all classes the same way, and oftentimes black people at higher classes.
Bro, I'll give you an example of how it does. It's like the medical mistreatment of pregnant black women is shown to affect a Serena Williams and the sister that's got food stamps.
But Greg, you realize that the main reason why black women suffer from medical mistreatment is largely because a super larger proportion of them use Medicaid as their treatment for.
But I'm telling you, it's like. It's because of the denial of a black woman's humanity. When she walks into a hospital, it doesn't matter where she is on the class scale. She is as likely to suffer infant mortality as
what Serena Williams. I believe the Serena Williams story comes from her having to go to an emergency room because her doctor wasn't available. Serena Williams has a doctor.
No, but here's the thing. I'm saying that what the analysis shows is that it doesn't matter where a black woman, not just a Serena Williams is, because this is the way systemic racism works. And it's like
what the analysis demonstrates actually is that poor and working poor black women have worse health care and material physical treatment. And because most black women are poor and working poor and depend on Medicaid, that will result in worse treatment because they have dealing with inferior health care because most of the people who take Medicaid are not providing the best services. There's a very good book by Lorraine called Racecraft that talks about how racialized statistics create the illusion of comprehensive racial suffering when actually the suffering is suffered by mostly poor and working class.
And that was the one thing that I didn't like about the New York Times piece. I mean, the New York Times piece is illuminating in the sense of there is a problem with infant mortality in the Black community, but what Pascal brings up about, you know, poverty doesn't really get brought up as much as the race aspect. So the entire article is almost ontological in the sense of if you are Black and you are female, you walk into a hospital because of the Serena Williams situation, well, then it's all bad for you. It's almost like the Oprah and the purse situation.
It's almost like the perfect example of mass incarceration. I'll hear this by most of my college-educated fraternity brother men who go on Martha's Vineyard every summer. Like, oh, we got the same amount of chance of getting arrested and shot by a cop as a brother in the hood. That's statistically false. A college-educated Black man has literally 10 times less of a chance of interacting in any way with a police officer than a Black person with no high school diploma. Literally, mass incarceration is a race and class paradigm, not just a race paradigm. What happens what happens in these conversations is that because capitalism is race, and this is the most important part. Capitalism requires Black people to disproportionately be relegated to the reserve army of labor. So all of the harm that comes from being relegated to the reserve army of labor, crime, drugs, poor treatment, poor housing, poor education, is relegated to Black people because capitalism requires that the supermajority of society, which is white, even though there are more whites that are poor, are relegated to thinking that the system does not disadvantage them or they would rebel. So capitalism requires that Black people in the American context disproportionately suffer to keep the illusion of the functionality in the minds of the white majority. So there's no question that the system, there's no debate that the system is racist, but the brunt of the racism is felt by poor and working class Black people who are the supermajority of Black people, while educated Negroes like Oprah and Frank Wilderson, who was like a second generation tenured Black professor, are whining and crying about racism while they're sipping on their mint juleps, while the majority of Black folk are not having the benefits of having people like David Brooks. David Brooks at the New York Times co-signed their writing. Or Ta-Nehisi Coates chilling, getting going to France, eating beignets or God knows what else. Because what happens? Hold on, let me finish. What happens is that middle class Negroes like ourselves pimp out the trauma of working class and poor Black people. Oh, the racism be so bad, so we can get those fat 6-figure checks at the Atlantic or those tenured jobs, because the Black middle class for over a century has leveraged the suffering of poor and working class Black people to allow itself to be ascended into the same grounding powder mechanisms that ground those poor and working class Black people to dust. That is the reality.
Well, and the reality too is that some of the staunchest fighters for the Black poor, the Black working class, come from the Black middle class as well. I mean, my parents
that has true, and they are the best of a bad lot.
Look, shots fired. Yeah. Where's the
but the whole thing is again to look at the efficacy of the effort. You know what I mean? Most of the people who showed up at the Gary convention, are now, their kids are in the Black middle class now. You know what I mean? Like the aspirational trajectory of Black folk is clearly not to be, among the poor and the working. I mean, in the impoverished, the poor, the impoverished working class. You know what I mean? But that's why, like most of the freshmen at the HBCUs now are Black women, and that the fastest growing population in terms of self-owned businesses are among Black women who come from the working class.
Well, I mean, Greg, listen, bro.
Hold on, Pascal. Hold on. Look, man, we didn't bring Greg on to have a talk about fucking Afro-Pessimism, and I blame this all on Derek Barnes.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad for the pushback. You know what I mean? It's like
listen,
I brought Frank into it. You know what I mean?
Look. I just want to.
But all these things are connected. You know what I mean?
Let me just say this first, as a fan, like literally, Mr. Tate.
Yes.
I need you to understand that it is because of you and people like you that made me feel good about playing guitar as a black kid playing punk and metal music in my hood of Richmond, California. So I first and foremost have to get that out. And Frank Wilderson, unfortunately, is too
Frank is roadkill up in here.
I have a lot of friends that are a very good friend of mine is a fellow professor at Irvine with him, and actually got her doctorate around the same time. So unfortunately, this is tame compared to the conversations that Pascal and I have off air. And me and my friend that actually works with Wilderson, she and is a acolyte of Wilderson have off air. So this was not
what I
had planned.
And I mean the thing is in academia now, it's like radical black feminists have they've definitely picked the bones of what they feel they need out of AP, and for them he's not even in the conversation, but there are aspects of his critique that are part of the critique they're mounting within the academy, But again, like somebody said, you need to have a whole show on AP.
And we have to blame.
Let's get back to Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yacht rock and shit. We're gonna put Verdine and Philip Bailey up, on the double bill with Jimmy Buffett. Now that's their level.
Oh shit.
Right. Okay.
Go for it, Marcus.
All right, yeah.
We gonna forget about Serpentine Fire, and let's go and that's the way of the world.